Now, Trump's controversial pick for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, he's still facing a tough battle for confirmation, with senators now pushing to see his FBI background check. John, do you think that Pete Hegseth will make it to confirmation and be confirmed?
It's unclear. He's done a fairly good job visiting senators and calming some of their concerns. However, there's a lot that's out there, and the hearing is on January 14th. They're usually in a controversial nomination like this, as it was with Brett Kavanaugh, who was nominated for the Supreme Court in 2017. There's usually a last-minute surprise. When Brett Kavanaugh appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee, there was a break in the normal procedure that only senior senators got to look at the FBI background check. Other senators were allowed to look. I think that is going to happen with this. There's several senators who say they don't want to vote on Pete Hegseth until they find out what the FBI has learned. And in this case, for something as conventional as just checking into someone's background, I think the FBI still has a good reputation. So I don't think they're completely discredited in that regard.
Look, how long can we expect this process to take? Because there's been a lot of discussion about Pete Hegseth, but when do you think we might see his confirmation happen, or that at least the confirmation hearing?
I think it's unlikely that he will be confirmed before January 20th when Donald Trump takes office. These things always take longer than you predict if the nomination is controversial. I believe it's a 50-50 bet right now that Pete Hegseth is confirmed, because as a previous cabinet official once said, there are known unknowns and there are unknown unknowns out there. And there's more to probably come on Pete Hegseth. Whether or not he can combat it is a separate story.
Okay, well, we'll be watching all the way from here. Now, since the election campaign started, Trump has vowed to protect women's spaces, in particular, keeping biological males out of women's sports. Here's some of what he's had to say on that.
With the stroke of my pen on day one, we're going to stop the transgender lunacy, and we will keep men out of women's sports.
How has all of this been received in America? Do you expect to see protests after he is inaugurated?
Oh, I'm sure there will be protests, but nothing like there would have been 5 years ago. Most Americans do not believe the trans issue is the most important thing facing the country, or even in the first few slots. In addition, the basic rights of trans people are protected. We're talking about things which are, shall we say, a little unusual and a little different than most civil rights that we discuss in the United States. And finally, things have moved. 5 years ago this week was the week that J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter book series, the most popular book series in modern history, first sent out her tweet saying sex is sex, gender is gender, and people should go to the bathroom that birth dictated. Well, you know what? She was pilloried, she was boycotted, she was smeared, but she's standing tall, and she's basically been vindicated. In Britain, there's been a wholesale retreat on gender reassignment surgery being mandated or tolerated, and I believe that the same thing is happening in America. So I think this issue, while it certainly gets a lot of clicks on the internet, has largely been resolved. We're going to give trans people rights, but we're not going to basically deny biological science and basically promote theories that simply don't bear out.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned 5 years. I didn't know that since J.K. Rowling made that momentous tweet. It's certainly a very different situation in Australia with our laws here, but I think you're right. There has been a shift over there. It's hard to remember that Trump isn't president yet with all this, John, not only due to the command he's taken on U.S. and foreign politics already, but also because, well, Joe Biden is simply missing in action. Here's what the White House press secretary said about that.
When is the next time that people will hear from the president?
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals.
What type of response was that?
I've never heard anything like that from the podium at the White House. The Wall Street Journal last week had a 3,800-word piece, heavily documented, basically showing that the cover-up of Joe Biden's infirmities and cognition problems began the day he took office. And I'm just astonished at the media's inability to go back and re-examine their behavior, how they let this happen. We almost had a situation where the country elected a president who would have been manifestly incapable of responding in a crisis. There's no one right now, I think, looking at Joe Biden in the rare sightings we've seen him in the last few weeks, that think that he could have served a second term as president. I think there has to be a reckoning here. This is one of the major reasons that people in the 2024 election voted for Donald Trump, because they said, if the media will lie about something this important, the fitness of someone for office, what else are they lying to us about?
So true. And just has to be said for the record, we certainly didn't lie about it here on Sky News Australia. We told it to people straight right from the beginning. John Fund, thank you for your time tonight. And as always,
thank you.